All right, I want to give you guys a little breakdown of statistical analysis and some of the fun stuff, but some of the boring stuff too that goes into sort of how both of these teams got here, the minutia of it, but let's have a little fun with it too. So, obviously, we got the game number 3 Michigan at number 2 Ohio State. The line is currently 7.5 in favor of Ohio State. The total is 57. Michigan leads the all-time series 59, 52, and 6. The last matchup, Michigan won 42-27 in Ann Arbor. Both teams are 24, 24, and 1 in the shoe. Ohio State is 23, 22, and 1 when both teams are ranked. If you look at the historical matchup, wins all time, Michigan leads that number 1 with 987, best in all of college football. Ohio State 943, which is actually number 2 in all of college football, but they have the slightly better win percentage at 73.2%, Michigan at 73.1%. Ohio State has 8 national championships, which is 8th all time. Michigan has 9 national championships, which is 6th all time. And not to be an Ohio State homer, but if you look at Michigan's national championships, 1901, 1902, 1903, 1904, the first 4 are, before Ohio State even gets a win in the series, which is pretty crazy. Consensus All-Americans, 72 for Michigan, 68 for the Buckeyes. Heisman winners, 3 for the Wolverines, 7 for the Buckeyes. 6 players for the Buckeyes, but 7 Heisman winners, obviously, with Archie Griffin getting 2 and being the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. NFL draft picks, Ohio State leads in this. They are 3rd all-time, 472 for the Buckeyes, 412 for the Wolverines. And first-round draft picks, Ohio State leads everyone in college football, 87 overall first-round draft picks, which is, again, number 1. Michigan has 59, which is, nothing to sneeze at, which is still really, really good. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, Ohio State is the number 1 overall team in the country. Michigan is the number 2 overall team in the country, with Ohio State's offense being number 2, Michigan's offense overall being number 4. Michigan has the number 1 ranked run offense. Ohio State has the number 11th ranked run offense. Michigan is 48th in passing. Ohio State is number 12. Michigan has the number 1 defense according to Pro Football Focus, while Ohio State is number 4. So these teams are both very, very good on both sides of the ball, and we should have a great matchup coming up this Saturday. Obviously, Ohio State has dominated this series since 2001. Over the last 10 years, Michigan won last year. They did not play in 2020, but Ohio State won the previous 8 before that. So, going back to 2012, Ohio State has dominated the series, but obviously revenge will be a factor going into this game as Michigan won the last one and got that monkey off their back. Now, I want to take you real quick through the Ohio State schedule. Obviously, at 11-0, they have, I don't want to say breezed through their schedule, but they have pretty much dominated most opponents they should have, except for maybe last weekend against Maryland and the Northwestern game, which was pretty crazy. So let's just take a quick trip back through the previous 11 games. Ohio State took on, at the time, the number 5 Notre Dame Fighting Irish and beat them 21-10 in the Horseshoe. Notre Dame actually had the lead at halftime of this game, but Notre Dame has really come back, and they've climbed all the way back up to number 13 in the rankings after dropping a few games early on. But they do have a big matchup against the current number 5 team, USC, this weekend. Buckeyes took care of business 45-12 over Arkansas State. Nothing really of note there. Against Toledo, 77-21. Just a huge number for the Buckeyes there. Everyone got involved. first Big Ten game, 52-21, just take care of the Badgers in Columbus, and really wasn't even as close as that final score. And then 49-10 over Rutgers. Rutgers' only touchdown. Actually, they had the lead in this game 7-3, I believe, or 7-0 after a fumbled punt. So their only touchdown drive was 20 yards in this game, but the Buckeyes just dominated this game thoroughly. Then you go on their first road game. The first 5 are at home. First road game at Michigan State, 49-20. And again, this game was not even as close. At one point, Ohio State had a 500-yard advantage in the yardage department. Michigan State got some junk yards at the end of the game and a junk score. But overall, just a very, very, very impressive day for Ohio State, moving to 6-0. Then come back home, take on Iowa after a bye week, 54-10. A weird game here. Offense actually kind of sputtered, but Iowa gave Ohio State so many short fields that it was just an absolute blowout. And Iowa's offense was just absolutely atrocious. Iowa's only touchdown in the game was a defensive score, so Ohio State's defense really held the Hawkeyes to 3 points in this game. You go to Penn State, 44-31 win, but the game was really closer than that score indicated. Buckeyes moved to 8-0 after this game, but Penn State really did a nice job in this game overall. Led at halftime, led briefly in the fourth quarter before Ohio State went on a big run to take, at one point, a 20-point lead before Penn State got a late touchdown to cut it back to 13. Northwestern, this was the really weird game. This was basically, in 30 to 45 mile winds the entire game, gusts up to 50 miles an hour, if not more. Northwestern actually outgained Ohio State by 2 yards in this game, went up 7-0. Buckeyes ended up scoring the final 21 points. But, a game that shouldn't have been this close ended up being close. And you can factor in the weather. You can factor in a lot of things. But it was an ugly game. We'll just leave it at that. You win, you move on, you turn the page, move to 10-0. Then you come back home, take on the Hoosiers of Indiana, get to 11-0. Ohio State, just a big blowout win in this game. Cam Babb gets the touchdown there for just a really cool moment for a team captain that hasn't seen the field much because of injury, but just some great moments in this game, and Ohio State wins big. You go to Maryland last weekend, the game before the game, and Ohio State again moves to 11-0, 42-30. And again, a game that was pretty close in the fourth quarter. Ohio State had a 33-23 lead, and Maryland, cut it to 3. And it was a little bit of a nail biter there for a minute, but Ohio State gets the job done to move to 11-0. And I don't think many players on the team would tell you they weren't looking too much ahead to the game. Now, looking at that game last week, CJ Stroud, not a great game by his standards, but a good game overall, 18 of 30, 241 yards, a touchdown. He is still the Heisman front runner, right there with Caleb Williams of USC, maybe Blake Corum of Michigan. It's kind of a two-man race if you look at things now. Dallin Hayden steps in for a banged-up Travion Henderson, a banged-up Mayan Williams, and carries the load. All these carries came in the second half. 27 carries, 147 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is a true freshman, gets to the 100-carry mark on the season, 503 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to just be great week in, week out. A modest game, but made an absolutely amazing catch on the first drive to set up a touchdown on the very first drive of the game. 5 catches, 68 yards for the season. 65 catches, 1,035 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 16 yards per catch which puts him right up there for a Bolitnikoff award, which is the best wide receiver in college football. And arguably, if he was in the NFL draft, he would be the number one wide receiver off the board this year. But he is not draft eligible as he is only a sophomore. Zach Harrison, a senior defensive end, 5 tackles, three of them solo, 2 assisted, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, which led to a late touchdown by Steele Chambers, who almost looked like an interception, but it was a fumble, and just picked it up and walked right into the end zone. Lathan Ransom, the safety, has had back-to-back just stellar games for the Buckeyes. 7 tackles, 6 of them solo, 1 assisted, 1 pass defense, and 1 punt block, which gives him back-to-back games with punt blocks against Indiana and Maryland. All right, let's look at sort of the report card for the Buckeyes now. A little bit of an error on this. Says through 10 games. Now this is through 11 games. The updated numbers: Buckeyes 46.5 points per game on offense, which is number 2 in the country. 7.4 yards a play, which is number 1 in the country. 65 offensive touchdowns, which is second behind Tennessee. 492.7 yards per game, which is 8th best in the country. Now, Ohio State, their yardage per game is under 500, but the yards per play is the most important stat here, and they're scoring in the red zone and scoring now. Basically, they're scoring on long drives, they're scoring on short drives, they're scoring on big plays, they're scoring on short yardage. So they're kind of checking all the boxes right now on offense. Points on defense: 16.9 points per game on defense, which is 10th best in the country. And if you saw our stat last week, they're giving up a lot of those points in garbage time. So when the number ones are on the field, Ohio State's defense, you could argue, is a top 5 unit in the entire country. Yards per play: about 4.5 yards per play, which is 8th best in the country. They have only allowed 22 offensive touchdowns in 11 games, so basically 2 per game, which is 10th best in the country. And then 283.4 yards per game, which is 9th best in the nation out of 131 teams. We take a look at the Big Ten East. 11-0 Ohio State, 11-0 Michigan. Penn State still hanging around, 9-2. There are only 2 losses to Ohio State and Michigan, so a very, very good team. Only 3 ranked teams right now in the Big Ten. Number 2 Buckeyes, number 3 Wolverines, and number 11 Penn State and Indy Lions. Maryland 6-5, Michigan State 5-6. Indiana 4-7, Rutgers 4-7. In the Big Ten West, there's a lot of really good teams. There's no one that's really standing out. And if you look at the top 5 teams, Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, we could end up in a massive tie here for the Big Ten West. So I'm not even going to try to dissect that. We're just going to let it play out, see what happens. I believe Purdue and Iowa Iowa plays Nebraska, but I believe if Purdue wins, they get in. So we'll just let it all play out and see what happens here. And we're going to go over the top college football teams real quick here, show you the resume. Now, I forgot to update a few numbers, but you're going to get the gist of it. The top 4 teams remain the same. They are the only 4 teams remaining that are undefeated. 11-0 Georgia, 11-0 Ohio State, 11-0 Michigan, and 11-0 now TCU, who got the walk-off win over Baylor last week. So all the teams are 8-0 in their conference. Georgia's resume includes win over Tennessee and Oregon. I'm not even going to include Florida anymore because they're a very average team. They lost to Vanderbilt last week. Ohio State's resume, 2 really, really good wins. Number 11, Penn State. Number 13, Notre Dame. Michigan's resume really is, you can include the Illinois win last week. Illinois is not in the top 25 anymore, but it's an okay win. And Penn State, again, I didn't change the number, but they are the number 11 team in the country. If you look at TCU's resume, and these were the rankings when they beat them: number 15, Kansas State, and number 24, Texas. Those are their 2 best wins on the season. USC, 10-1 is sitting at number 5. LSU 9-2. Now, these rankings are according to the AP poll. This is not based on the committee or anything like that. Clemson, Alabama, Tennessee. I really think it's, you can look at those top 7 teams, and those are the only teams I think that are have a shot at the college football playoff, which obviously includes the top 4 teams. Even Clemson, I might even scratch off over whoever loses the Ohio State-Michigan game. Now, if TCU loses, I think they are out. And that could obviously propel USC up. But USC's got that big game against Notre Dame this coming weekend, who is currently sitting at the number 13 spot. So we'll, again, let it play out, see what happens, and we'll see where the chips fall. All right, let's get back into Ohio State and look at some of their numbers. So C.J. Stroud, the redshirt sophomore quarterback for the Buckeyes, his completion percentage has been down the last few weeks based on obviously that Northwestern game and just not, in the high 70s and 80s like he is often, but 204 for 307 on the season, which is basically 66%, slightly under 3,000 yards, 272 for yards per game, 35 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So that is an amazing number there. He is the first quarterback in Big Ten history to throw for 30 plus touchdowns in back-to-back season, and leads all college quarterbacks 9.7 yards per attempt. And to put that into perspective, you look at someone like Hendon Hooker, who was doing a great job right up there with the Heisman. He was around 7.7 yards an attempt this season. So C.J. Stroud still doing big things, and he's obviously got the weapons to help him out on the outside with Ibuka and with Harrison and, just Fleming, and the list goes on and on. So let's talk about those guys, those 3 guys here. Obviously, no Jackson Smith and Jigba. But these 3 guys have been stepping up, especially Ibuka and Harrison. Harrison specifically, 65 catches, over 1,000 yards now for the season. One of, I believe it's 9 Buckeyes to ever cross that barrier, and now Ibuka is right behind him. So 1,037 yards on the season for Harrison, 11 touchdowns, 16 yards per catch. And Ibuka, 16 yards per catch as well, also has 57 catches for 914 yards and 8 touchdowns. Fleming, who has a little bit of the dropsies lately, but still a pretty decent season for a 3rd wide receiver, and really even a 4th target for C.J. Stroud. 24 catches, 415 yards, 6 touchdowns, 17.3 yards per catch. If you add up the 3 numbers between the 3 of them, 146 catches for 2,366 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 16.2 yards per reception for the trio. Now, we talk about the outside weapons for the Buckeyes, but Cade Stover, former Mr. Football in Ohio, this guy was playing linebacker last year in the Rose Bowl for the Buckeyes, and this year is the first tight end for Ohio State to have over 30 catches in a season since 2002, Ben Hartsock. So 31 catches for Stover, 386 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 12.5 yards per reception. This guy's going to be an NFL tight end eventually, and he's doing some great things. Does have eligibility to come back next year, but we'll see what he decides to do with the draft, and he's been a great target for Stroud. All right, let's get to the running back trio. This is a banged up unit, but Dallin Hayden stepped up big in Henderson's absence in the second half last week, and Mayan Williams did not dress in that game. So as you can see, all 3 of these backs are over 100 carries on the season now. Hayden with 100, Henderson with 107, and Mayan Williams with 117. You can say Henderson is kind of your home run hitter. Mayan Williams is kind of your, I guess he's not necessarily a home run hitter. He's not really a power back. He just runs very aggressively. I almost compare him to like a Kareem Hunt with the Browns. The way he runs, he's a violent runner who just gets the job done. And then you got Dallin Hayden, the true freshman, comes in. So freshman, sophomore, and junior all carrying the load for the Buckeyes in each other's stead, and all have over 500 yards. Mayan Williams leads the way with nearly 800. And then you add up the numbers here, 24 touchdowns between the three of these guys, all averaging over 5 yards a carry, 5 for Hayden, 5.3 for Henderson, and nearly 7 yards a carry for Mayan Williams. So their health will be important in this game against Michigan coming up this weekend. We'll see who's ready based on the availability report and the injury report and all that stuff. But I think we need at least 2 of these 3 guys to be dressed and ready to go. And I say, why not start Dallin Hayden? He's kind of the hot hand, but if Mayan Williams is back or Henderson feels good enough to go, they have sort of earned their role. But Dallin Hayden has really stepped up in their absence. All right, I want to throw a few did you knows at you guys. So since Woody Hayes became the head coach at Ohio State in the early 50s, the Buckeyes have had 12 undefeated regular seasons, which does include ties. 54, 61, 68, 70, 73, 75, 79, 2002, 2006, 2012, 2019, and 2020. So if you really think about it and look at this, we are spoiled as Buckeye fans, especially if you look at the gap between 1979 and 2002. Not one undefeated season between 1980 and 2001. And since then, in the last 20 years, we have had 5 and possibly 6 if they get the win on Saturday. So, I mean, just a remarkable run, and what an era of Buckeye football to be living in. Did you know at the shoe, and now I briefly mentioned this, but at the beginning of the show, but Ohio State and Michigan, their history, 24-1 is the record in the shoe. The team up north's last win was in 2000 against, obviously against Ohio State, but in 2000 they have lost 9 straight games, and obviously the 2020 game was not played due to COVID. So, first game since 2018, and, rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. He was the quarterback in that game, and, which tells you how long ago that game really was. And this is a really interesting fact as we head into the weekend, and CJ Stroud is basically a lock to be invited to New York, but he will become, if this is going to happen, only the 5th Buckeye since Archie Griffin to be nominated in the top 10 of Heisman voting 2 separate times. Now, we know Troy Smith won it back in 2006, and we know in the late 90s, Eddie George won it as well. But Art Schlichter, Chris Spielman, Braxton Miller, Justin Fields, and now CJ Stroud will be the only 2 Buckeyes, or only 5 Buckeyes, to finish in the top 10 of the Heisman voting 2 separate times, which is a pretty remarkable stat when you think about it. Let's take a look at the most Big Ten titles in history. Michigan leads the way with 43, their last one being last year, of course. Ohio State had it the year before. They are at 39 Big Ten titles. Minnesota is third with 18, so 21 behind the Buckeyes. Their last Big Ten title was in 1967. Illinois is at 15, they're in 4th, and Wisconsin at 14. But just a remarkable stat that these 2 heavyweights of the Big Ten, Michigan and Ohio State, have really been the flag bearer for the Big Ten. Ohio State, obviously, since 2002, but Michigan carried the load there for a while, especially in the early to mid 1900s. Take a look at the Big Ten slate for the final week of action. Obviously, we know the game in Columbus, number 3 versus number 2. You go to Friday, Black Friday. You got Nebraska at Iowa to finish out the season for the Cornhuskers, and see what happens for Iowa if they can get into that Big Ten West champion spot. And you got Rutgers at Maryland. You got the Battle of Illinois with Illinois and Northwestern. Paul Bunyan's Paul Bunyan's axe on the line with Minnesota and Wisconsin. Purdue at Illinois, or Purdue at Indiana, Battle of Indiana there. And then the land grant schools, a couple of them here with Michigan State at Penn State, the number 11th ranked team in the country. The Buckeyes need their line to step up. Paris Johnson, Donovan Jackson, Luke Whippler, Matthew Jones, who's battling an injury right now, and DeJuan Jones. These guys have been really great in pass blocking. Run blocking has been sometimes an issue, especially in the short yardage things. I almost feel like it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. These guys are all highly recruited, highly ranked guys that can get the job done. So we hope they're healthy. We hope they're ready to go. And I know Luke Whippler especially was battling an injury, so I hope he's good to go. And Matthew Jones is the big question mark heading into this weekend. He left with an injury. So I believe it was Vamahi that stepped in his stead. So we'll see what the starting lineup looks like on Saturday morning. And then the leader of the Buckeyes, Coach Day, Ryan Day, entering is in his fourth season with the Buckeyes, and also plus 3 games there, but 45-4 overall record, 31-1 in the Big Ten, looking to avenge his only Big Ten loss to the Wolverines last season. So Ryan Day just he's been criticized, which is crazy to me. But when you expect perfection, it doesn't always happen. But he is a great coach and doing great things with the Buckeyes, and hopefully he can avenge that loss to Michigan this coming Saturday. Ryan Day states it. The Buckeyes state it all the time. They have 3 major goals for this season. 1, beat the team up north, which is obviously first and foremost, because if you beat that team up north, you get to the Big Ten title. You get to the Big Ten title, you're going to be favored heavily. You win that Big Ten title, and then you get to the college football playoff, and then you go and try your best to win a national championship. So all 3 goals very much alive for the Buckeyes as they head into this weekend. All right, let's take a look at the final weekend of college football, week 13. This is the AP poll from Top 25. This is from Fox Sports. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, USC, LSU, Clemson, Alabama, Tennessee, and Oregon are the top 10 teams. But the best matchups of the weekend, in my opinion, Auburn at Alabama. I know Auburn has struggled 5-6, but that game has been good even when it's not supposed to be. I don't know if it will be this year, but we'll see what happens in the Iron Bowl. You got Notre Dame at USC. So Notre Dame traveling to the West Coast to take on the Trojans, who are, surging. They're number 5 right now. Notre Dame sitting at number 13. They are playing some good football as of late, knocking off Clemson and just destroying Boston College last week. You got the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State at number 20, Ole Miss. You got number 19, Tulane at number 21, Cincinnati. Florida, who has struggled of late, at Florida State. That's always a good battle. You got the Civil War up in Oregon. Oregon at number 10, Oregon at number 22, Oregon State. And then you got the Apple Cup, number 12, Washington at Washington State. So some really nice Pac-12 battles heading into the final weekend of college football. YSU has finished their season. These are all going to be teams from the 3-3-0 here. They finished the season 7-4, so a nice season for Coach Phillips and the Penguins. However, hopefully next year they can get into the FCS playoffs and get it done. So that's, again, a nice season for the Penguins, but, we expect more and we want more out of them. So we wish Coach Phillips and the Penguins a great offseason and get that job done to get back into the playoffs next year. Kent State is at Buffalo on Saturday. Akron is at Northern Illinois on Saturday. to close out their seasons. Mount Union, 11-0. They are the number 2 team in Division 3. They last week they just destroyed, I believe it's Salisbury, 52 to nothing in the opening round of the playoffs. This weekend they play Utica, which is from New York, in Alliance. So hoping to move on in the D3 playoffs. And we all know Mount Union is a absolute powerhouse. So again, we know what's on the line. You know what's on the line. Everybody knows what's on the line. But this is just a huge one. It's, you look back at 2006, number 1 Ohio State, number 2 Michigan. You look back at 2016, number 2 Ohio State, and number 3 Michigan. That game went to double overtime. But Ohio State has the revenge factor on their side. Michigan is we're going to see the health of Blake Corum, what his status is. But we know Michigan's going to run the ball. We know Ohio State wants to pass the ball. I looked at the weather forecast. It looks like low 50s, decent weather, nice, partly cloudy, partly sunny kind of day. And we're just hoping for, I'm going to show my Ohio State bias, but hopefully a win for the Buckeyes and, get back on that winning track, not just in the rivalry, but to get back to that Big Ten title game and keep all of those title hopes alive for the number 2 team in the country. But should be a great battle. 2 very, very good teams, different styles of play, but both play a really good defense. Ohio State, we know, wants to throw it around a little bit. We know Michigan wants to run the ball. So we'll see what's in store for this game. But, it should be exciting. And let's hope for a Buckeyes win. So go Bucks, OH. And let's have a great game on Saturday. And let's hopefully come out with a Buckeye win. So thanks for watching. Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, a great holiday, and a even better Saturday, November 26th, as Ohio State takes on the Wolverines at the Shoe in its 100th year on Fox. Joel, Gus, it's going to be a great one. So again, go Bucks, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the 330 Sports.